In this video, we will show you how to clean the spindle collet chuck of VHF dental machines. We will demonstrate the maintenance task using a K5+, but the required steps for all models are very similar. For this task, have the following items ready: a clean cloth, and the spindle service set, which contains a cleaning brush, a knurled nut, a tube of collet chuck grease, and a cleaning cone. You will find this maintenance task listed as cleaning the spindle collet chuck in the maintenance section of Dental CNC or on the touchscreen of the Z4. Select cleaning the spindle collet chuck. The spindle will move into the tool change position. Notice, only clean the collet chuck with the spindle service set which was provided with your machine. Never use other tools or compressed air to clean the collet chuck. Beside the current improved version of the spindle service set, there is a previous version. Depending on which spindle service set you have, follow the corresponding instructions. If you are using the improved spindle service set, insert the pin of the knurled nut into the collet chuck. Ensure that the collet chuck is properly seated in the recess of the knurled nut. If you are using the previous spindle service set, you additionally need the measuring pin, which you can find in your accessory case. Make sure you orient the knurled nut the right way round, exactly as shown in the video. Put the knurled nut to the spindle with one hand. With the other hand, orient the measuring pin so that the ring is in the lower half and push the measuring pin through the knurled nut into the collet chuck. Loosen the collet chuck with the knurled nut until you can turn the collet chuck by hand. Pull out the measuring pin. Then unscrew and remove the collet chuck with your hand. Clean the inner cone of the spindle with the cleaning cone by twisting the cleaning cone. If you are exchanging the spindle collet chuck, dispose of the old one as described in the chapter on disposal in the operating instructions, and then skip ahead to minute 3:26 and remount the new spindle collet chuck. If you want to clean the spindle collet chuck, insert the cleaning brush until the end of the brush aligns with the opening of the collet chuck. Do not push any further because otherwise dirt may get into the thread of the collet chuck. Rapidly pull the cleaning brush out of the collet chuck while twisting it at the same time. Repeat this movement multiple times. Thoroughly clean the outer surface of the collet chuck with a clean and dry cloth. Ensure that the collet chuck is perfectly clean before greasing it in the next step. Put a small amount of collet chuck grease on your index finger and smear it with your thumb. Apply the smeared collet chuck grease to the flanks of the collet chuck. The surface on which grease must be applied is marked blue. The longitudinal slots that may not be greased are marked red. Screw the collet chuck into the spindle by hand. If you are using the previous spindle service set, put the knurled nut to the spindle with one hand. With the other hand, orient the measuring pin so that the ring is in the lower half and push the measuring pin through the knurled nut into the collet chuck. If you are using the improved spindle service set, insert the pin of the knurled nut into the collet chuck. Ensure that the collet chuck is properly seated in the recess of the knurled nut. Screw the collet chuck into the spindle with the knurled nut and firmly tighten the collet chuck. Notice, if the collet chuck is not properly seated in the spindle, rotational imperfections can occur during operation, which may damage the spindle and tools. Once you have finished cleaning the spindle collet chuck, mark the corresponding task as complete in the maintenance section of Dental CNC or on the touchscreen of the Z4. Cleaning the spindle collet chuck. This will keep your list up to date. For a comprehensive knowledge base about VHF dental machines and dental camp, visit dentalportal.info. We hope that this was helpful. Thank you for watching.